All right.
What's up?
What's happening? Here, as always, with Cabo. We got a special guest. Yeah, got a special guest in the house. James McDermott, head coach at Albany CrossFit. How many years have you been there for?
Going on 14 in May. It'll be 14. So
14 years. That's crazy. And when did Ackerman start that place?
He started in 2007, November 2007, and I came along 2011 in May 23rd. I remember the day. It was a Monday. I remember my first day at Albany CrossFit, and yeah, I've been there ever since.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. So you're a level 3 trainer. You have been in this world, obviously, for a really long time. And one of the coolest things, I think, just from the little bit of time that I've got to know you over the last year or so, is the amount of effort that you put into coach development. I'd be curious to hear just some of the things that you've done to develop yourself as a coach. Obviously, you've been head coach at an affiliate for a long time. You're a part of the Knowledge Pro. I know you've done some other things as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as maybe now 3.5. I think once you take the level 4, you gotta add like a point, there for every
an unofficial. We'll put up the chain, James. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah,
get that official.
Yep. I need to change that on Zoom. 3.5. 3.5. I was joking about that at my gym the other day. Continuing education has always been a value of Albany CrossFit. We spend a lot of time with it. Ever since Jay was there, and especially once Jay started to get on seminar staff, we really started to change the structure of our coaches' meetings to what are the points of performance? What are the progressions? Let's practice coaching and get feedback. So that's been going on for a very long time, and I've carried that on. Actually, every coach that we've had, I've had a hand in their coaching development, whether it be having them in on-ramp with me, or just shadowing me in classes, or assigning them to another coach. So we do get a lot of in-class time with people that are developing with us. And I've learned a lot through teaching others, because, all of a sudden when it's your job to teach everybody, you have to prepare. All right, what are we going to talk about? You make a lesson plan on the subject of the day or that coach's meeting. And then you have to make sure you know all those things to be able to critique someone else or give someone else feedback. So that's definitely helped me a lot over the years on just having to be responsible for not only my own development, but other people's development and getting people ready to coach classes.
Isn't there a saying out there that, like, if you truly want to show you've mastered the material, you should be able to teach it to others in a way that they can understand and just simplify it down. So that's cool, James.
I know for myself, I've had many times where I'm like, yeah, I've got this down. I know this stuff. And then I go to try to teach it to somebody and I can't even repeat like what I think I know. And I have no idea. And I make them more confused than they were in the first hand. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm not quite as good at that. I think one of the other cool things about developing others is you start looking at whatever you're teaching, but specifically coaching from a different perspective. And it's like now all of a sudden I'm watching people do something. And oftentimes from my experience, I'll watch them do something and I'm like, that's not very effective. And then in the back of my mind, I'm also like, but I do that all the time. I probably shouldn't do that very much, And so I just think the perspective of training other people is super valuable.
It's always different being on the outside looking in. And then you're like, I wish I could see myself in the moment on the outside looking in on when I'm missing something. I don't know if that makes sense. So where like you watch one of your assistants and you're like, oh, they're not seeing that. Or I'm so glad they saw that. And then you just wish you could do that for yourself. I guess that's where video might come in.
It speaks to the value too of just, like you were saying, you have some strategies and how you guys do coach development at your gym. But it does speak to the value of just simply taking time to every once in a while, just do a class eval, like watch somebody else's class, whether it's a shadow or whether you're officially doing it with like an eval sheet in front of you. And it's just as much for your own development as it is to give the person that you're evaluating the feedback.
And for me, being the head coach, one thing in the recent year that I've kind of discovered is it's kind of like in class, they're doing what you told them to do. So when I'm watching our other coaches coach, I have to think to myself, are they modeling off of me? And do I do that all the time? And this isn't really a them problem. This is coming from me. This is how they see me teach the warm up. This is how they see me do the whiteboard brief. And maybe I need to fix it here first, and then have that trickle down.
That's such an important point. It's like you are the one that sets the tone. Whoever the head coach is, the owner, whoever's the person that's on the floor coaching most of the time is going to set the tone for what the expectation is. And so, if you either, and I think that's the tricky part oftentimes, is there's not a lot of affiliates that have role models like you were fortunate enough to have. Like you said, things changed when Jay got on seminar staff, and that's a result of like Jay now having different people to model, right? And seeing what the expectation is for seminar staff, and that completely transformed what he did, which in turn completely transformed what you guys did. And oftentimes there's not that standard at an affiliate because oftentimes people just don't know any better. And so I think that's such a big point to make. And that's why it's so important for coaches and owners to be pursuing higher level education and seeing what they can do to develop themselves as a coach, because that's going to have a trickle down effect for everybody else at the gym. So, Omar says here, people learn good habits from each other. They also learn bad habits from each other, right? It's it works both ways.
I think James Clear
learned from Jay.
Yeah. If you guys have read, I think Todd, I believe you have, but if you've read like Atomic Habits, right? James Clear talks about if you hang out with 5 other smokers, you'll probably be the 6th smoker. If you hang out with 5 other people that wake up and go to the 6 a.m. class to work out, you'll probably be the 6th person that wakes up and goes to 6 a.m. class to work out. So it goes both ways for sure.
Yeah, or they learn what not to do. As long as they have, I think that's the case, as long as they have perspective on what's good and what's not. I know a lot of times, like especially CrossFit coaches, especially it's like people start CrossFit, it changes their life, really kind of regardless of the coach that you had, and oftentimes the affiliate and that kind of stuff. And so you see a coach and you're like, holy crap, what they did for me changed my life because of the methodology in the program. I want to do that for other people. And if the standard that is set is that, hey, we just write the workout on the board, I turn the music up real loud, I say 3, 2, 1, go, and I let people go. It's like, that's amazing. That changed my life. I want to do the same thing. So I think having somebody to model your coaching after is a big piece. And the fact that you've gone beyond what Jay provided with coach development at the affiliate there, but then also pursued it beyond that with the Knowledge Pro. And like you already mentioned, pursuing and taking the opportunity to get tested at the level 4. And that's really why we've got you on here today, is to talk through that process. So go ahead and tell us, what was that experience like? You took it, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, something like that?
Yeah, December 6th. I think that's 2 weeks now. I've lost track of time at the end of the year here.
Right?
It's all a big blur, right?
It is. It was an intense experience, so I would say not for the faint at heart. If you were going to go and do this, you should be really, really confident and have a lot of coaching hours under your belt, just like they say. I had all of that and I was still freaking out, and I talked to Jenny Orr after the fact about it. And she's like, well, you really, really care about this. And I'm like, and throughout the whole process of like, the closer we got, the more nervous I got, all these things, I forgot to remind myself that like, oh yeah, you care about this. And this is a thing that you enjoy to do. You're passionate about this. I forgot to remind myself of those things. So maybe that'll help someone else. I was just more into the doom and gloom part of it, like all the things that could go wrong. I forgot how to lesson plan. Here's a workout that they gave me that I can guarantee you I've coached 100 times over the years. I can't say what it is, but and now all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I have no idea how to teach this class. I have no idea what I've done, the past 13 years. It's like you just kind of go blank. It's like when someone comes in and they tell you, I forgot how to snatch today. And you're like, how did you do that? we snatched yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
It happens. It hits you as soon as you get that email. It becomes really, really real.
So when you got that email and it's a workout that you've like movements that you've coached before, all that kind of stuff, what do you think was the issue? Why do you think it felt that way? Obviously it's because you care. There's the pressure of performing on game day. But did you just is that like, holy cow, I'm just thinking too much about this and kind of overcomplicating things, or what was it?
Yes. Yeah. What I should have done is just put pen to paper. Just write down the first draft. Don't edit it. Don't tweak it. Don't overthink it. Here's the warm up that first comes to mind. Here's the specific warm up. Here's the stimulus, the scaling, the workout, the cues, the progressions, all that stuff. Should just put it all down on paper. Instead, I kind of went like, all right, what am I going to do for the warm up? No, that won't work. What does their gym look like? That won't work. You know what I probably should have done is just lesson planned for Albany CrossFit where I'm comfortable.
Like
Right
do
off
the
bat.
thing that you know how to do. Just create a lesson
Yep.
plan for the class from start to finish. Yeah.
Yep. Where the barbell's going to go at my gym, all that stuff. And then start to mold it on like, okay, we need to make this change. So definitely overthought it. We've talked about this before, Todd. Me being on a 5-hour flight with my notepad and nothing else to do and just poring over my lesson plan is not a good situation for James McDermott. So I changed it several times on the flight. And then during the classes, I changed my lesson plans too.
Oh, on the fly. Change the plan
on
on
the
the
fly.
fly. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I just in the moment I wasn't happy with certain things, and I was just reading the group, and I'm like, I was for my second workout, I had a warm up. It's a very short warm up, and then I looked at the group, and as I was doing the whiteboard brief, I was like, this isn't going to be fun. And like I said on the call the other day, on the knowledge, I have a hard time sacrificing fun, and I'm like, all right, I need to get the energy going. I want to get them moving. This is going to be too boring, and I don't think I can get a lot out of them from this warm up. Even though when I put it down on paper, the warm up I had planned, I was like, yes, this is going to be it. And then once we got into it, I was like, this is not it, and I had to abort.
Going back, would you stick to the original one? Was it good enough?
No, I don't think it was good enough.
You don't think the warm up was good enough?
The original one that you had planned that you thought would be all right. Yeah.
See, I practiced it at the gym. You know, I shoehorned it into some of my classes, and it worked there. And then once I had things like set up in advance for the actual workout and the spacing and everything, I wasn't feeling it. And I think I was putting myself in a situation too where I was going to have to make sure I'm coaching superfluous movements that wouldn't have led into the workout, if that makes sense. Because you need to coach everything. You need to coach the warm-up. So now I'm picking warm-up drills that I have to make sure I'm coaching and I can get these people to do, and I'm going to get evaluated on. But it doesn't lead into anything for the workout, and it actually doesn't progress into any of the movements of the workout. It's just a bunch of stretches and floor-based gymnastics exercises that were a good idea in my head to begin with. And on any random WOD day, I think that would be appropriate. But on this day, I realized it wasn't going to work.
Okay.
It wasn't a progressive warm-up to go into any of the skills.
I want to dig into this just a little bit, though. We're talking about the general warm-up, right? Not the specific warm-up, the general warm-up.
General warm-up.
So do you guys, I'll ask both of you, Todd, I'll ask you first. Do you always make sure that your general warm-up connects to the workout of the day and kind of leads into it? Or is it okay to just do what James is saying and like have some dynamic stretching and just miscellaneous gymnastics drills to get your athletes just primed to work out, ready to rock?
Typically there's some sort of tie-in, right? If we're squatting, we're going to do something that gets the hips involved. If we're going overhead, we're going to do something that's a little bit more shoulder focused. Now, there are days where it's like, hey, we're just going to play a game and I just want this to be fun. And like, it's going to be a fun warm-up. Your heart rate's going to get high. Your body's going to move through a range of motion. And then right before we do the specific warm-up, I might do a couple little stretching, dynamic warm-up stuff to get you ready to rock and roll. But it's like, there's always thought of what the workout is, and that kind of dictates the general warm-up. But at the end of the day, it's like, can I just get somebody hot and get their body moving around a little bit? And I think I'm good to go.
So James, for your plan, and again, I know you're being very mindful about not being specific with what the workout is, which is certainly appreciated, right? But when you walked into it, did you have a plan for your general warm up that it had like nothing to do with the actual workout, and then that's when you kind of changed it on the fly? And if so, why do you think that you planned that on paper to start with?
I think I planned it on paper to start with based on the number of people coming to my classes, which is way smaller, and I had more space to do it. And also not in workouts that applied to, or that were similar to the evaluation workout. Maybe the workout we did at the gym was like an overhead strength, and I just used that as an opportunity to practice this warm up. But once we got into it and I had all the 12 athletes spaced out, I was like, we're too far. And even with just me demoing the person all the way down there on kind of this, not obscure movement, but one that I wouldn't expect them to do regularly on the floor, I was like, I should change this to something that is going to lead into the main movement. Let me give an example. Let's say if we had weighted lunges in the workout, which I didn't. So I'll just use this as an example. And then in the general warm up, I was going to have them kneel and step up and stand or something like that. I have to make sure that I can teach that well and get the performance points on that versus just teaching lunging. So essentially what I did was I got rid of the adjacent drill and just brought my warm up into if there was going to be a 6th step in the progression, it'd be right here. And we'll do that in the general warm up for these movements and then move on to the specific warm up and just kind of have them flow from one to another. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a big takeaway from this whole entire thing. It's like, I like the analogy as a baseball player growing up. It's like, I wouldn't get to the championship game and decide today's the day to try my brand new glove. It's like, I want to stick with the thing that got me there and not run any risk of things messing up when I get there. And it's like, I know, and I really experienced this primarily like at level 2s when we have to teach example classes. Like when I started that role in the level 2 seminar, in that environment, when there's all eyes on you and you're getting evaluated or there's somebody there that's going to give you feedback, you're going to overcoach. You're going to do more than you've planned for just because it's like, I really want to show what I've got going on. And I remember, I don't know about you, Kabo, but my first, 10 level 2s, I was probably 15 minutes over because I just did so much stuff of everything when I ran that example class because I just wanted to put it all in there and show all the things that I could do. Maybe it wasn't my first 10 seminars, but it definitely happened a lot. And so quickly you realize that it's like, hey, I need to stick to what I do at my gym. I need to trim down and actually do less than I do at my gym because I'm going to be on hyperdrive here in this environment because of what we've got going on. And so I'm going to need to plan for less because I'm going to do more. And hopefully that will allow me to be somewhere close to my normal strategy and like normal timeline and all the rest of that kind of stuff.
And that's definitely, I blew my timeline on the second workout by quite a bit.
Is this the workout you're talking about, changing on the fly, your warm up?
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of led you then down, like now we're on the wrong path timeline wise a little bit?
I don't think the warm up did because that was still fast paced and that put me ahead because it ramped me right into the first movement. But what happened was once I got to the first movement, I slowed my pace way, way down. Kind of what Todd's talking about. Like I was teaching and coaching the heck out of every single step in the progression way longer than I would have in a normal class. But I wanted to make sure I see everybody on step 1 and make sure that hopefully they see I see everybody and making changes. And okay, we're going to do another set, another rep. We did a lot of reps on that first movement. And I never even checked my watch. I forgot I was wearing a watch.
Yeah,
You know,
you're
I always
mentioning that
coach with a watch.
the other day.
Ouch.
You just
Ouch.
went with the gut, went with the feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of
I
the things
just
we say
went-
about the progressions, and that's something that, you know, I think is worth pointing out, is the progressions are so valuable, and we want people to use progressions. There's so much magic in those progressions to help us set our athletes up for success, to get some corrections out there. But we don't need to feel like we have to make everybody perfect in every step of the progression. The whole point is to get to the full movement so that, you know, we can make our athletes better in that full movement. And the things that are happening in those progression steps are likely going to show up when we get to the full movement as well. So, and I only mention that, James, just because that is such a common thing. Todd, I don't know about you, but that's such a common thing that I see, where people just, they're, you know, they crush the first few steps of the progression because it's like, I have to see and correct so many things. And then there's just either not enough time to do very many reps of the full movement, or maybe you just don't look at your watch at all and you still do all the reps of the full movement, but then it kind of pushes you over a little bit.
And
When
that was an awkward part of the first movement. It was something I wasn't physically able to do. So, but only one person in class was going to do it or able to do it. I kind of pulled the group. Would anyone like to try? And everyone was like, not us. But one person did. So I kind of had them do that, you know. And then, all right, cool, you've got them. But then they still didn't have the capacity or the confidence to want to do it in the workout. So they ended up scaling it anyway. So that kind of felt like an awkward part, you know. I don't know if I did that in an evaluation setting correct way, you know. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, if we're doing the movement, in my opinion, evaluation or not, if we're in class, if we are doing a movement and we are practicing a skill, there needs to be a point in that teaching to where if you have the chance to do the skill, we're going to do it. Whether you're going to do it in the workout or not, we want an opportunity to try, because that skill practice, the goal is not always to do it in the workout. Like eventually, yes, but it's to achieve that skill. And so today might be the day. And obviously what's going to jump into my head with this thought process is, or movement wise, is a muscle up, right? So if we're doing a bunch of low ring drills, we're doing the transitions, we do some high ring stuff, working on holding the false grip, doing some swings. And then I've got those two athletes that I think are close. I want to take that opportunity to see if we get that first muscle up, even if it's like, cool, you got your first one, you know, we're doing Amanda, there's 21 muscle ups in this workout. We're definitely not doing that, but we got our one. Cool. You're going to do jumping as your scaled version, but I get to give you the high five and fist bump. You get the reward of like doing that, whether it's either getting it for the first time or I'm building some reps to where eventually maybe we get a chance to do it in the workout. But I think to your point, like, I think that's the right thing to do. If we're teaching a movement in class and somebody has the chance to do it, I want to give them that opportunity for that win for that day. I don't know. Kabo, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like, that's the opportunity that so many people are like, I would like to try it. Like, can I try it? Knowing full well that I'm not going to do 21 in a workout, but maybe I can get one or two, or maybe I can just even do a couple attempts and then realize like, oh, I'm not that close as I thought I was. Like handstand walks, I think is a great example. Like, we're going to practice handstand walks during the warm up, but like, you know, 50-foot handstand walk for rounds, that's not something that's realistic, but man, that practice time is invaluable. So it's like, take one or two steps beyond to give them that skill work for the practice. And then you take those couple steps back to find what their appropriate scale is for the actual workout. Yeah.
Okay.
I love this question by Amit. You want to? Yeah. No, I think you're.
Yeah. One of the things, like, not only have you been a part of the Knowledge Pro and been on meetings and doing homework and that kind of stuff, but one of the other things that was really, really cool that you took the opportunity to do was go and guest coach a ton, to get yourself out of your comfort zone, to go to local gyms that weren't terribly local. Shoot, you flew across the country and you went to the Knowledge Pro in person where you got a chance to coach. at Ryan's gym, and I know you made mention like your class sizes are a little bit smaller. His are bananas. It's like 30, 40 people per class. So Amit asks, how valuable was guest coaching at other affiliates in prep for the L4? How did it actually compare to doing the assessment?
It's extremely valuable. The trip out to Yuba City to Ryan's gym, Classified Fit, CrossFit Classified. Shout out to Ryan, past level 4. Shout out Ryan.
Yeah, heck yeah.
That was extremely valuable. And the next time there's a in-person Knowledge Pro, if you're listening, you should definitely go. It's a great experience. Plus, it's just fun to hang out with coaches and nerd out about CrossFit for several days in a row. But it was great to do that, just to get bigger class sizes and unfamiliar environments. During the Knowledge Pro, I think it was really helpful to have an audience too, which I don't know if you can create this at any regular drop-in or something like that. But that was great to kind of have in the back of your head that people are watching and evaluating, but try to ignore them and eventually tune them out. And during my evaluation, there were only a handful of times that I realized that any evaluator was even there. I was just kind of into the class. It was kind of like just, oh, I'm walking by another person that I'm not coaching right now. And you remember that they're there, or you're in the middle of doing something and they might be standing very close or just like out of the periphery of your eye. So other than that, I was able to kind of tune that out and just kind of be in the moment in the classes. Going to the other local gyms, I think was, of course, valuable too, getting eyes on and working with a lot of people that I didn't know. And also, it's hard to get people that you don't know to do what you want them to do. So, and if you drop into a lot of local gyms, you are going to fail a lot at doing that, because, and your personality is going to come head to head with their personality, but also their gym's personality on how they do things in general, how they normally scale, what they normally get away with, maybe even. Not to say that, that the other gyms are doing a bad job. It's just, I know there's people at my gym that they get away with bloody murder. If Todd came or Kristin, if you came, I would like to watch. I would like to watch you, combat them. But that's just how it is. Every community is different.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things, and that's one of the great skills that you get to develop by going to other gyms. That's one of the things that Kristin and I have had the benefit with of teaching seminars and interacting with all these different people that have a different interpretation of CrossFit and coaching and how to get coached. Is you kind of have to sink or swim as far as figuring out how to relate to people and get some buy-in from them. Mm-hmm. And to your point of saying, like, how would you guys combat them? Like, you can't. If I come in combative, it's probably not going to work out very well. So I've got to come in with this, in my opinion, like a softer, gentle approach of like trying to get a feel for who that person is and how am I going to be able to get them to buy into what I'm saying. And so it can't be just like, hey guys, I'm here today and this is how we're doing it, because it's probably not going to go well. Because to your point, every gym has a little bit different culture. Every coach coaches a little bit different. And so it starts with the relationships, which I know you're really, really good at, connecting, making relationships, making it fun, and then just figuring out the little things that you can do to kind of make some small tweaks and changes and get some buy-in and ask questions and maybe figure out how to convince somebody that it's their decision to scale the workout as opposed to you telling them what to do. So
I almost feel like this is an underrated trait of a good coach. Do you know what I mean? Let me say a little bit more with that. We talk about like teaching and seeing, correcting, all of this, very, very important, obviously, but the ability to connect with different types of people that you don't know and read their reaction and figure out how you're going to get buy-in from them is not easy. And it takes a lot of reps and it takes a lot of trial and error. And at the end of the day, if we're not able to do that as coaches, it doesn't really matter how good we are at seeing and correcting if we're not able to get people to buy into what we're saying and to try to work hard for us. Does that
It-
kind of
and,
make
and,
sense what I'm saying?
and when
Yeah.
you say connect, the thing that jumps into my mind, and in my mind, we as coaches, we are performers, right? You step on stage, it's your turn to perform, and it's our job to, yes, connect, but also to manipulate the people to get what we want from them. Like there's a big part of that where it's like, hey, that's what I'm doing, is like, I am figuring out how to mold you into the person that I want you to be for this 1 hour, do the things that I want you to do. And sometimes that comes from connection. Sometimes that comes from some sort of weird off the hand manipulation, but those are the type of things I think that are going to be critical. And you're only going to get that experience by stepping out of your comfort zone, to your point, going to other gyms and interacting with those athletes that don't want to hear anything that you're saying, interacting with those athletes that when you tell them to move their stance and push their knees out, they're like, no, thanks. I'm all set. This is where I squat. And you're like, all right, that didn't go very well. I wonder what I can do to make it go a little better today.
Manipulation is definitely one of my coaching superpowers.
Oh, great.
And
Master manipulator.
Yes.
You can ask my weightlifting team about that. Presence and attitude was not one of the things I got dinged on for my evaluation.
That's great. Yeah,
of course.
That's great.
And I felt like I had, if anything, I felt like I coached 2 really, really fun classes that day. And I definitely made big connections with those people. One person wanted to come to Albany CrossFit and drop in at my gym, which was a nice compliment.
That's a super great compliment.
She said that out loud. I'm like, write that down on the evaluation form. She said that.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that, evaluators?
Yeah.
Can you say that again a little louder?
Yeah. Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Just a little louder. And right before class, do this when you drop into another gym or at the evaluation. Of course, you should be there early, and everybody that comes in, you should talk to them, shake their hand, introduce yourself, write their name on the board. That'll help you remember their name, and keep using their name in your initial interactions and learn a little bit about them. Like I remember everybody's names from both classes, and I also remember where they were
still
standing
to this
in the
day.
room. Yeah, I remember all their names. Yep. And I remember what side of the room they were on, or in the row, or whatever. I can tell you exactly where they were.
That's
and
called post-traumatic stress, James.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Maybe these are the people
you're dreaming
that hurt
about
me.
it when you close your eyes.
Yeah.
No,
that's
really cool. Yeah.
That's a great skill set. Like to be able to memorize people's names and to hold on to those. I will tell you, I've gotten to the point where I can memorize people's names in the moment, but literally 10 minutes after class is over, I've flushed that out. They're gone. I appreciate you. I might be able to remember where people were in class and what the things were that I was fixing with their movement, but their name is one of those things that just does not stick typically. Face is good. Position's good.
If I go on the Mafia Instagram page, because I did my evaluation at CrossFit Mafia, I'll look through their class board thing. I'm like, all right, where are my peeps at? All right, there's Bryson, there's Layla, there's Courtney. Yeah, so I remember them all. If I saw them again, I would remember them.
Just the way that he referenced that of like, where are my peeps at? That just shows the power of who you are as a coach and just how cool this whole thing is, right? You can go and take this experience that was extremely challenging, that was stressful, and you're like, man, I just love coaching people so much that now I've created this connection with these folks and they are my people now. I coached them one time for 1 hour in a super interesting setting, but they are my people and they are my folks. I think that's so
something
cool.
to think about that too. You can get really down in the dumps if you fail. Of course, I wasn't happy when I read that part of the email. Like, bummer, right? But that doesn't mean you didn't make effective changes on anybody, that it was a complete whiff. It doesn't mean you didn't change someone. It doesn't mean you didn't motivate any of those people to come in the next day when you asked, are you coming into class tomorrow? Even though I won't be here, but you should be here. So you don't know what the evaluation is all about you, but the class from their perspective is all about them. And it should be, you should be, when you're coaching it, even though you're being evaluated, you still need to make it about them. And you don't know what kind of an impact you're making on those people. Who knows? I could run into some of those people 5 years from now, and they're like, you know what? I decided to get my level 1 because I wanted to do that evaluation or whatever, or I had so much fun in your class, and I kept chasing that, or anything. You don't know what kind of an impact you're making. I'm sure you guys experience that all the time at the seminars.
Yeah, and it's not only the impact that you're making, but the evaluation. It still means you can have a good class, even if the evaluation doesn't go the way you want it to. It doesn't mean that you're a bad coach, or I just didn't pass that singular evaluation, right? And that's not the end of the road for any of this stuff. So I can appreciate and respect the fact that it's like, those of you guys that are willing to put yourself out there, go and take the test, take the evaluation, go through the stress and the pressure of doing that, and then take it for what it is. All right, cool. This was a snapshot. I know some things I can work on and need to work on, and I'm going to go back and put in the work and do that, and then try it again. It doesn't mean anything other than I took this experience, right? It's not going to dictate, like you said, the impact that it had on the athletes and everybody else.
For my continuing education, I've been to so many seminars over the years. So many CrossFit seminars, so many CrossFit adjacent seminars or workshops or anything like that. And it got to the point where people were like, why are you spending so much money on that? It's a waste. You're never going to remember all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not there to remember start to finish everything we did. I'm there for the one thing that stood out to me that I can use in class and add that to my toolbox. Like I've never been to a seminar where I didn't walk away with one valuable thing that I learned, or one call on the knowledge, or one article. So it's always worth it to put in that work. And at the evaluation, I didn't pass it, but I can remember the people that I impacted their movement enough where I'm like, this is why I came to Colorado, so even if I didn't pass, I at least made this person more comfortable doing the thing we were doing. So on the heavy day, I had one person who was terrified to do what we were doing. And by the end, she's like, when are we going to do this again? I'm ramped up about this. And I know for a fact I fixed her movement to the point where it needed to be. And that's why I went to Colorado to fix her movement there, and then make her more comfortable with it. So hopefully the next time she's like, yeah, I'm ready to do this thing and go heavy.
That's awesome. But what a awesome mindset, true growth mindset, right? Where it's like, not only your mindset on hey, here's why I went to Colorado. I touched this one person. I impacted this one person. To be aware of the trickle effect that we can have as coaches, in the moment, I think is really, really special. And the other thing too, just going through all these courses and classes, and that's the whole jam, right? Is this making me better for my members on the dance floor, on the coach floor? If the answer is yes, then why not? Why not go sit in the course?
Yeah. And what can I take away from this? Think about it.
Yeah.
Just that perspective. If you approach anything as an opportunity to learn, that's the same deal as every athlete that walks into my gym, whether I feel like I'm there's somebody I have something in common with, there's something there. They've got something that's interesting, and I can ask that additional question, get to know them. It's like, Kristin, you've probably taught, north of 300, 350 seminars. Have you ever gone through one of the content, by the way, that you could probably coach and speak in your sleep? Have you ever left one and been like, man, I didn't learn a single thing. That was a waste of my time.
Oh, me learn from
even from level 1s and level 2s.
Every time, every single level 1 or level 2, I learn at least, I was going to say at least one thing. I could even, 5 to 10 things at least. Whether it's a new cue or just every time. Yeah. You just got to be open to it.
Yeah. And there's so much value in diving in and in putting yourself out there and giving yourself the opportunity to learn. You've made mention that the knowledge, what we do with the Knowledge Pro and in affiliate university and coach development, we've got lessons, we've got content. Sometimes we recycle them from semester to semester. And if you take the approach where you're like, well, I've already done this before, I think I've got this figured out, I know that information, you're not going to get anything out of it. If you look at it with a different perspective, and the one that you have, James, of like, hey, there's something in here. There's something in here I probably didn't get last time. There's something in here that I'll probably understand better now because I have a better overall understanding of that concept. I'm going to get something from this. It's amazing how much that you can get from this. It's
There's
like
knowledge calls too, to have the group of, regularly, I'd say we have 20 to 25, maybe, sometimes a little bit north of that, of experienced coaches hungry for development, hungry to learn on these calls on a regular basis, sharing their coaching strategies, sharing things that they've done. There is never a call that I don't learn a new little nugget that I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that in my class next time. That's a cool thing. Or we did that anatomy call. I was taking so many notes, like just writing down so many things with it. Just, you just have to be open to it. And I love that mindset, James. Absolutely.
Yeah. I still can't do some of those, write everything down in 1 minute. The paper just starts to get crazy.
Like the points of performance.
Yeah. The points of performance.
Yeah.
Write it as fast as you can in 1 minute. Like I still try to do that. And I'm like,
but them, right?
So close.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully I'm writing down the
them.
right things.
There you go. Yeah. Maybe you're just not, you need to work on how quickly you can write, not how quickly you can recite them.
Shorthand, PP instead of push press.
But
then my brain's like, I want to write it. I want to get
out the whole thing.
Yeah.
So Amit has another great question here. Did you get your guest coaching sessions evaluated, and did you go in for something specific to achieve in that or those sessions? So the Knowledge Pro in person, we evaluated your class with the world-class coach evaluation that you guys can download from Best Hour. But at the other ones, the local affiliates that you went to, did you have somebody there evaluate and giving feedback? Were there specific things you were working on?
No one to evaluate. Sometimes the gym owner or the coach was taking class, and there was one after that one. I asked like, "Hey, any ideas?" But they're not thinking about that while they're taking class, or the gym owner is doing other things. So really, it was just me with the classes. So I didn't really have those evaluated. I would like to learn how to set up my phone and the little speaker thing, because I have the equipment. I cannot for the life of me get it to work. Maybe Kristin can take me through a tutorial. But
me?
So no, I didn't have.
Kristin.
Oh no, Kristin.
I was like,
Kristin. I was gonna say Kristin, not technology, not so great.
I'm like, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, but then when it comes to things I was working on, I did have things that I was trying to work on. So one of the feedbacks that I got from the Knowledge Pro was not getting lost in the mix of the athletes when you're teaching things and kind of hang back. So that was a big thing that I was working on for all of my drop-ins. And then like just working through progressions and tell, show, do, check, like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to work on for this part of the movement. Here's what it looks like. Have them do it, lead them through, static and dynamic movement, and then make corrections from there. So those are the big things that that I was working on each time. And also just making sure my lesson plans would fit within the hour.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go over on any of those. I don't remember. So that's at least good. I did go over at the Knowledge Pro though. That was a different one.
So I guess the theme here is that when you're actually getting evaluated, that's where the extra stuff comes into play, and the risk is ran of going over on timeline. To your point, like,
and they also, I don't know. They told me about the timing of the class, and when they told me about the timing, I was like, there's also a little thing in my head. I'm like, oh, I have maybe extra or something like that, so I can be if you give a mouse a cookie type of person.
Give a mouse a cookie.
I can't tell you how many times like you're giving a lecture at a seminar and your timestamps of the material you want to get through, and you turn to write in the board, you do the glance at your watch, and you're like, I'm 3 minutes faster than I normally am, or I'm 3 minutes
where
ahead
a
of
story
schedule.
comes in. I get to
Here
tell
we
a
go.
story.
I got all kinds of time, and then all of a sudden you finish the lecture 7 minutes slow, and you're like, "What happened? I was 3 minutes ahead." And it's because you start to like relax and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and let me
add in another progression.
There's no kind of feeling than when you go over the evaluation time, because they'll stop you. So there's no other type of feeling than when you feel the hand come down on your shoulder like this, and that's them letting you know, hey, we are at at the time.
And
Uh,
time.
yep.
Yeah.
That's not a fun feeling. We finished the workout, so I was at least happy about that. I'm like, all right, let's finish it. And I kept coaching, but the evaluation was over when the hand came down on my
Yeah, I think
shoulder.
it's an interesting
The
point,
shoulder.
Todd, that you make, that, it's like, hey, guest coach at some classes, practice a bunch of classes, everything's fine, timeline's fine. And then you go to the in-person knowledge, you have evaluators sitting there. You go to the level 4, you have evaluators sitting there. And it's just little, maybe obvious that you want so badly to show that here's all the things I know, that it just pushes
Less,
that out a
I,
little
I
bit.
think that's a
and
big
less
big
is
takeaway
more.
from
Yeah.
big takeaway from this thing is it's got to be less is more in any of those environments. And that same thing, like I think of that same approach. So, if I was testing the level 4, that would be my thought process when I'm teaching any of these classes at level 2s. I even like when I'm at my affiliate and I know there's going to be large classes, like holiday season, we'll get big classes. And it's always, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh man, we're going to have all these people. They're going to be bringing friends and family. I want this to be really fun and sexy and cool and whatever. And let me show them how well I coach. And I'm like, if I do that, they're going to hate it because the class is going to be 90 minutes longer than they want it to, or like 30 minutes longer than they want it to be. It's always less is more. It's like, how simple can I make my whiteboard brief? How simple can I make my general warm-up? What do I need to teach? And what are the main points of that? How can I take this movement that's complex and teach it to a big group of people, and get the most bang for my buck, and then hit my workout, get it done on time, or get it started on time so I can execute that. If you guys haven't seen the napkin timeline, I'm actually going to drop a link in our chat here. I think if I can do that everybody can get. Pete Shaw. Oh, let me see.
Oh, there
Yeah,
it is.
it's there.
Did it show up? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. On my side, it said, okay. You guys take a look at this thing. If you struggle with timelines or you don't do lesson plans, like this is such a simple approach to this thing that Pete takes us through with that. It's like, all right, cool. We got a 60-minute session. The first thing that we need to know is what the stimulus is of the workout, right? And there's a handful of different ways you can go about, but essentially we need to know, hey, how long is this workout going to take? What kind of buffer am I going to add to that thing? And so let's say I've got a workout that the stimulus is going to be 12 minutes. I want, and let me think of anybody have a workout on the top of their mind, that a benchmark workout that's a 12-minute benchmark workout? Let's
Jackie.
even,
Elizabeth.
12 minutes or less.
yeah, that's
am
fine.
I too slow on Elizabeth? I panicked.
Well, like all of those, I was going to say Helen, the same deal. Like,
Elizabeth. Helen, that's a good one.
Let's go with Helen. So,
Helen's a good one.
yeah, that's a 10-minute time frame, right? It's like, hey, we've got 3 rounds, 400-meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, 12 pull-ups. This thing should be done in roughly 10 minutes. All right. So if I know the stimulus is 10 minutes, I'm going to have my faster athletes finish in 8. I'm going to have some slower athletes, maybe around 12. I'm probably going to factor in 14, or just to make it even easy, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what I'm going to allot. So now I know what the stimulus is. So I'm going to draw my timeline. The next thing I'm going to do is chop off 10 minutes on either end. The 10 minutes on the end of the workout is going to be my cool down. The 10 minutes on the front end is going to include a 2 or at most 3-minute whiteboard brief. And then my general warm up, which is going to be whatever it is to get the heart rate up, get the body moving. And so now all of a sudden I'm like, sweet, I've got 20 minutes on either end gone. I've got the 15 minutes for the workout. So that's 35 minutes, excuse me, that are already gone. And so now I know I've got 25 minutes for my specific warm up. All right, now I can break that down to whatever I need to. Probably the thing I'm going to spend the most, 3 different movements. The thing I'm going to spend the most time teaching is going to be the pull-up. I'm going to do a kettlebell swing progression. Maybe I do some running drills. If I'm going to factor in a little test round or teaser round and a bathroom break, there's probably an additional 5 minutes that I'm going to pull out of this thing. But it just gives you a really good ballpark of like, how much time do I actually have for this stuff? And then you can piece together what your specific warm-ups are based on that. And then what are those steps that are going to get us to that point?
It's
and I
so
think
great because it creates just a really simplistic but quick skeleton. And then you can take that skeleton of your timeline and choose where you want to dive in and get a little bit more detailed.
And I think it's really important to do this, even if we are coaches that coach at gyms where we're given our programming and we're given lesson plans and timelines and all the rest of that stuff. Because inevitably, James, to your point, like things are going to change in the moment. And if we don't have an overall understanding of the workout stimulus, we're not going to be able to scale appropriately. If we didn't have a game plan of our own on how long each section is going to take, when something goes wrong, it's going to throw us off. So I think spending the time to work on those things. And then also to your point, James, of don't overcomplicate it. Don't look at this thing and be like, oh man, I'm going to do something different this time. I'm going to really show those evaluators by doing something different. I've talked to some people that were getting ready to take their level 4, and they were telling me their progressions they were going to teach and what they were going to do. And I was like, hey, do you ever do that at your gym? And they're like, well, no, not really. And I'm like, why would you add that progression step to this?
They're using the new baseball mitt.
It has me thinking too, like, all right, maybe it doesn't need to be 5 steps in the progression. Like, can I truncate it down a little bit and save time there and be more effective? It's kind of like the example you gave at the Knowledge Pro, the push jerk progression. You know, the jump and land, hands to the side, jump and lands, hands up at the shoulders. You said that you just always go straight to the jump and land to shoulder. Like they're two
you can combine the two
redundant pieces. So try to like squish it down into what its main components are, and then coach the heck out of those. So
yeah, and that's a great drill as you're coming up with progressions on your own, you know, or trying to plan for your classes or whatever. If you have, let's say, like a power clean or hang power clean, you typically use a 5 or 6 step progression. Challenge yourself to create a progression in only 3 steps, but still cover the same things, right? Like where does it make sense to combine points of performance? If you're looking at the, you know, bar path going around the knee, could you also look at the knee to make sure that the hip is opening all the way? You know, just kind of start to see where those connections can be made there. And
I made that mistake, I think, with picking some of my progressions for the level 4. I originally had written down, let's say if the movement was a bar muscle up, you know, I originally had like, okay, how can I distill this down into just 3 steps? But then I was thinking, I'm like, well, do they want to see 3 steps? You know, should I add in these other pieces that on another class, it might be 5 steps, you know, like, am I not doing enough? Like, are they going to be like, all right, well, this is a lazy progression or something like that, you know? Or like, maybe like
it's a rabbit hole. You got yourself down a little rabbit hole, James. Yeah. You know, it has me thinking.
Like you could go kip swings, kip and then pull up or whatever, you know, like you could get a pull up progression out of 3 steps. But then you think about the level 1 progression. It's kind of this list of things of boom, 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 boom.
That rabbit hole of what do they want?
What do they want to see?
Here's what we want.
It'll drive you crazy.
I'm going to say we as just like anybody who's evaluating anybody coaching. I want you to coach and get people moving as well as they can and prepared to do the workout and hit the stimulus. I don't care how you can do that
in 3 progressions. I mean, quite frankly, I would be more impressed with someone that can do that in 3 progressions than in 7 progressions.
Well, and you know, I've heard other coaches, especially when they were testing out the level 4 as it was just getting ready to come online, and there was people going and taking it where they were like, all right, cool. I usually teach this specific movement, like the snatch. I teach the snatch Bergner style from the top down, but I know in the level 1 manual, we teach it with the deadlift to mid thigh and the deadlift shrug. That's probably what they want. So I'm going to teach it that way. And it's like, you need to display your ability to coach, and you should be doing so in a way that's true to how you actually coach. And if I'm doing what I think somebody wants rather than what I actually do and know to do, it's just not going to work out. Then I'm like, it's the whole thing is an act and a show. It's like I'm pretending to be this coach that I'm really not, and they're evaluating who I'm actually not. And it's like that's not going to work. It's like nobody cares.
That's a good example on the snatch. Like any given day, I just do the classic Glenn Penley top down. He was my mentor, and friend for a while. Hips, knees, shins, and you coach everything in between, and we just drill, fix this, fix that within those confines. So yeah, that would be an example. Like that's what I would want to do at the level 4 if snatch was one of my movements. That's probably what I should do. But maybe I would overthink it and be like, well, what's the CrossFit progression? Like you just said, all right, shin to mid thigh, all that stuff, shrugs, pulls, things that I don't even agree with being in the progression,
Yeah,
and that's not to say that you, as you're coaching on a regular basis, you shouldn't try different things.
Yep.
Like I would recommend using that every once in a while, and picking what you like the best, cool. But the going and getting evaluated is not the day to try something new. But in your everyday class, as you're coaching over the years of your experience, teach the deadlift top down sometimes teach it from the bottom up, like change it up,
We'll do that and evaluate it.
Yeah.
Like evaluate what you think. Does this actually work? Does this actually work for me? When I do it this way, what kind of athletes or what kind of faults are solved by doing that? You know what I mean? That's like, I think so many times we get so caught up in like, well, this is just the way it's done. Well, the way it's done is ultimately to get somebody to move better. And so we need to like evaluate, how did the progressions work? We talked about this at the Knowledge Pro in person too, where it's like, hey, I streamline my Olympic lifting progression so much because of my experience of like, hey, I'll typically start from above the knee before I do like the stand and shrug rather than just the high hang. I know a lot of coaches that have specific Olympic lifting backgrounds start with the power position. So people always begin with the dip and then they go to above the knee or below the knee. And from my experience, most athletes are super knee initiated and their shoulders are behind the bar. And so from my experience, when I have people go power position where they bend their knees and then ask them to get above their knees, they jam their knees so far forward and have their chest so far upright that their shoulders way behind the bar. So I'm like, you know what? That's the fault that I see all the time. So I'm going to eliminate that power position from the progression. And I'm just going to have somebody bow forward and get the bar above their knees and try to get their shoulders over the bar. It's like, if I just would have been like, this is what the progression said, so I'm just going to do it, even if it causes things to go wrong, then I'm missing the point of the progression, in my opinion.
There's a million ways to skin a cat.
100%, right? And there's other coaches that teach it that way, and they get the result that they want, and they can teach it that way. So there's no like, oh, well, I do it this way, so it's better. You shouldn't do it that way. You need to do it the way that works for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we say, what's a good cue?
Your personality is intertwined with the way that you teach it too. So like, I'm sure, Todd, you have specific sayings or examples or jokes even to 100%. Keep it fun, with the way that you teach everything. And then if you teach a new way, you could just add a piece, all the progressions, like you're in a junkyard. So take a little bit from this car, a little bit from that car.
Yes.
And now you have the Todd or the Kristin progression. And then you put your soul into it, and now it's more genuine versus
100%
being just textbook.
It's going to borrow and steal from everybody until you kind of match it with what works with you to what works with the people in front of you. And to Todd's point, there's some days that I might teach it this way depending on the class I have, and then there's other days I'm like, I'm going to teach it this way, but I only know that because of so many times doing it different ways and evaluating whether or not I liked it, what I liked about it, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, what faults does it cause if I do it this way? More often than not, well, maybe I shouldn't do it this way. When I have this,
that's the way that I'll try to challenge myself, is like with a new progression or make a new progression. And not too long ago, I made a progression for the bar muscle up, focusing on the top down from a low bar on like the transition down, as opposed to just like what happens under the pull-up bar. And it was a total experiment, and then the way I get feedback on those things, like, hey, Todd, what you think about that? And you're like, oh, I didn't understand at all what you were doing, but we just humored you. No, that was really helpful.
Right?
I understand
Yeah.
now what I'm supposed to do with my
Right.
hands and arms on the bar muscle up. So that's one of the things that I'll do to challenge myself is like, what if I do it this way?
Yeah. A couple things to finish with here. Amit, another good question. How common or uncommon is self-evaluation after each class? If you want
Common.
to continue to get better at this stuff, it better be 100% common. It's like if you don't sit and at least think about what went well, what you could have done better, what you should have done differently, you're missing the boat, right? Every class is a chance to get better and to evaluate all of those different things. And so take that opportunity. No two classes should be the same. And there should never be a class that you finish and you're like, dude,
Yeah, I was just gonna say I
that's it. Drop the
never
mic. Drop the mic.
ever coach a class
I won.
where I don't
won.
leave driving home and being like, okay, here's what I wish I would have done differently. Here's what I could have changed.
I won CrossFit.
I get most of my feedback.
I won CrossFit coaching.
I won
Most of my
CrossFit
feedback post class asking athletes, how did that go? Or if other coaches were in class, how did that go? And they're like, hey, during the Thanksgiving holiday workout, you completely forgot to even teach the push jerk because we had one of those workouts that was a million movements, and and then I'm like, oh crap. All right, well, let's get it here in the practice round with the first weight. But I didn't even notice that I did that because I was focusing on so many other things. So having little powwows after the fact, hey, what did you think about that, Todd? Kristin, how did that go? That's typically how I'll get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we are at the end of our time here. Omar's got a question. Are we having this call next week? K-Boy, I can't remember. Are we doing this next week?
No call next week, day after Christmas. No call next week. The following week, which is
the 2nd.
January 2nd, we are having the call. So we'll be back January 2nd. Omar, I know you're probably on Christmas break. So just go back through those archives, watch a couple old knowledge videos next week. And then where can we submit topic ideas if y'all need any? We'll love some topic ideas.
Yeah, Omar, you can drop them in. I know you're in the Knowledge Pro. You can do that. You can send an email to todd@besthouroftheirday.com. Let us know there. Make a comment under any of these videos on YouTube, any of that kind of stuff. Anywhere you can comment and make notes. We will see it. We will find it, and we will talk about it. So, James, man, really enjoyed having you on here, man. Appreciate it. Stoked for your journey. I know you're gonna get this thing going forward, and we'll keep working on it, man.
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing. Like as a coach, you have to put goals for yourself on the calendar. And this was of course, the moment they announced it, a big goal of mine. And then once I finally was able to sign up for it, but like this time last year, I was debating about buying a walker, like to walk around my house like an old person. Like you guys know the health issues that I've had, we don't need to go into that. But I was debating about buying a walker and then maybe not doing this anymore. And because I didn't know if I can continue. And this was the cherry at the end of the stick, or the carrot, to keep me going and to rebuild my body and to have a goal on the character to keep the calendar to keep pushing me. So coaches need that too. Athletes need it. And whatever the reason is, if it's important to you, keep working hard for it, because you care a lot and you're passionate about it. And other things can take away from that and make you forget. But you just need to keep fighting for it.
Yeah,
love it,
man.
Love that.
That's
James.
great.
Thanks for
sharing.
All right,
guys, have a great holiday. We'll see you next time.
Later. Merry Christmas.